After 4 years as a veterinarian, I suddenly transmigrated into the lowest-ranking maid in a cultivation world. I planned to lie flat and slack off, but unexpectedly, immortal lords started bringing their spirit pets to me for consultations. A fierce guardian held a guinea pig while wailing loudly. "There are 2 lumps on its chest. Is it a terminal illness?" I sighed softly. "Those are its nipples. You have them too." The holy maiden of the Joyous Union sect looked pale. "Doctor, my cat has stopped eating." I kindly pulled out a small knife. "No worries, it's just in heat. A quick neutering will fix it." Later, the aloof phoenix immortal venerable knocked on my door late at night. My gaze involuntarily drifted downward. "Are you here for neutering too?" His ears turned red in alarm. "No, that's not it. This lord just, wanted to ask if you might be in need of an immortal companion." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When the steward ordered us lowly palace maids to tend to that rare, ailing spirit beast, I was in the middle of scrubbing chamber pots. The crowd fell silent for a moment before breaking into soft sobs. The weeping grew louder, mournful and pitiful. Amidst the cries, faint sighs could be heard. Wasn't that divine beast already dying? Yes. Even the senior medical cultivators couldn't diagnose its illness. If the divine beast dies in our care, we'll surely be punished. Isn't this just them being afraid of taking responsibility and making us the scapegoats? Woo-woo. I don't want to be eaten by the divine beast. Shoo, stop talking. Amidst the sound of sobbing, I pulled out the cotton stuffed in my nose and raised my head with melancholy. In the endless dark night, only a cold, sickle-shaped moon hung in the sky. I felt as though my fate was also hanging by the edge of a blade, from what they said. Even though that divine beast was sickly, its temper remained fierce and violent. If the divine beast were to die under our care, it would be a truly tragic outcome. If I were to be devoured by the divine beast while taking care of it, that would be an even more tragic outcome. I haven't lived long enough yet, but now, what lies before me is nothing but a dead end. Turn left and the path is blocked. Turn right and it's game over. Silence. What's all this noise? The head steward at the front frowned deeply, apparently fearing we might escape or make excuses to avoid going. He simply waved his hand and used immortal magic to bind our feet, forcing us to set off immediately for the royal beast garden. The immortal magic was too powerful to resist. Though everyone continued weeping, our feet moved swiftly against our will as we marched toward the royal beast garden. The towering fence was opened layer by layer by the guards using intricate spells. Creak. The fence closed, and just like that, all of us were locked inside the divine beast's enclosure. Darkness surrounded us, silent and still. The enormous panting of some creature could be heard echoing above our heads, trembling in fear. No one dared to move a single step. Woo-woo. The sound of weeping grew louder among the crowd. A gust of cold wind carrying sand blew past, and I, standing at the very end of the line, instinctively raised my hand to rub my eyes. By sheer coincidence, my gaze met that of the divine beast. I froze in place. 3 seconds later, I couldn't hold back. I burst out laughing. The divine beast stood 20 feet tall, with a slender neck, a compact and capable head, and its entire body covered in thick, curly white fur. In those small, beady eyes like mung beans, there was a mix of 3 parts defiance and 7 parts unruliness. Is this fucking thing really that legendary rare beast I've heard about? Holy shit, it actually is a divine beast. Staring at that oversized Pro Max version of an alpaca, I suddenly had the urge to open my mouth and shout, "Haha, I know you." But in the end, I said nothing. I was afraid of being seen as an idiot. So I just sighed quietly and began reminiscing with some melancholy about how long it had been since I last saw an alpaca. Almost 3 years now. I inexplicably traveled from the modern 21st century to the world of immortal cultivation. My name remained unchanged, still Jiang Wanin. My identity didn't change either, except I went from being a corporate drone to a lowly maid. In the immortal cultivation world, I was the lowest-ranking outer sect maid, tasked with cleaning and laundry for those mortals who had just entered the cultivation world and hadn't yet mastered immortal techniques. others who transmigrate to the cultivation world come to have a sweet, earth-shattering romance with their master or the demon king. As for me, even after crossing over, I couldn't escape my fate of toiling away. The most tragic part is that this body of mine doesn't have even a trace of spiritual roots. Even if I wanted to fight for a better future, to learn immortal techniques and defy the heavens to change my fate, to rewrite my story into a female protagonist's tale, it's simply impossible. So right now, looking at that sick alpaca, I nearly burst into tears. I never expected to encounter a patient that matched my professional expertise even in the cultivation world. Amidst the sounds of sobbing, a maidservant suddenly let out a cold laugh and stepped forward angrily. "Stop your damn crying. It's just a damn animal. What are you all so afraid of?" As she spoke, she bent down to pick up a spirit fruit from the ground, activated her flying technique, and charged straight toward the alpaca. "So what if it won't eat? Just shove it down its throat." With that, she viciously reached out, one hand pressing down on the alpaca's neck while the other forced its mouth open. The alpaca, startled, frantically swung its slender neck in an attempt to break free from its restraints. It also let out defiant roars from its mouth. The other maidservants, seeing this, all widened their eyes in shock. "Be careful, that's a divine beast, you shouldn't be so." The dissuasive words were abruptly cut off. In the next instant, the angered alpaca suddenly stood up. With a whoosh sound, a massive surge of flames erupted from the alpaca's mouth, shooting straight toward the maid's face. Everyone was stunned. I froze too. Good heavens. I only knew that llamas spit when they're angry. I never expected this. Who would have thought the llama from the cultivation world would spit out flames? The maidservant couldn't dodge in time, and her entire face was instantly engulfed in roaring flames. After a moment, she seemed to belatedly register the pain and began shrieking in agony. The screams snapped the others out of their daze. Those present quickly rose to their feet, forming mystical hand seals to help extinguish the flames. But the fire spat out by the alpaca resembled samadhi true flames. Even after being put out, it would quickly reignite. Half an hour later, the fire was finally extinguished. But the maid had already turned into an afro, her entire face pitch black, with even the contours of her features no longer distinguishable, too horrifying to look at. Amidst a chorus of gasps, I heard someone whisper, "Changwan is the most skilled in immortal arts among all of us. She has immortal arts protecting her and still got hurt like this. What about us with our weak immortal arts? If force doesn't work, we'll have to try gentler methods." After a moment's thought, someone began performing healing immortal arts and channeled them into the alpaca's body. The alpaca's expression quickly relaxed, and it started braying happily. But when the magic stopped, it immediately reverted to its sickly state. Witnessing this, the man let out a despairing scream. "How could this be? I can't keep channeling immortal energy into it forever. My spiritual power will be exhausted." Infusing it with magic was like trying to fill the sea with mud. It only addressed the symptoms, not the root cause. But this is the only way right now. Just as everyone was discussing taking turns to channel immortal energy into the divine beast, I finally couldn't hold back and tentatively spoke up. "Maybe, let me try, you." Chang Huan let out a disdainful sneer. "You don't even know any immortal arts. Just don't hold us back. That would be good enough. Better not cause any more trouble." Her words carried an imposing air, unfortunately, paired with her pitch-black face. She looked like a burnt sweet potato that had gained sentience. I didn't continue arguing with her, just laughed it off. I truly don't possess any immortal arts, but I am a professional veterinarian. Besides, I thought, what's so special about divine beasts anyway? No matter how powerful it is, it's still just an animal that knows magic. So I mustered my courage and walked up to the alpaca. Back in the veterinary hospital, I had honed my ability to read animals' expressions. Perhaps because the recent spell had made it more comfortable, the alpaca's mood was relatively calm now. I cautiously bent down, slowly stroking its head to ease its wariness. Then I spoke to it gently. "I'm here to treat you. Be good now." The alpaca blinked and let out a soft hum, as if responding to me. Immediately after, I began calmly conducting the examination in proper veterinary fashion. Touch, observe, auscultate, current symptoms of the alpaca, loss of appetite, irritability, persistent abdominal buzzing sounds, with localized swelling and hardness in the lower abdomen. It is reported that this condition has persisted for over 10 days. Diagnosis: suspected food accumulation or ingestion of a foreign object. Treatment plan: hydration and induced vomiting. I let out a sigh of relief, unable to suppress a wave of emotion in my heart. Such a simple ailment was nothing more than a trivial matter for a veterinarian like me with extensive treatment experience. I just never expected that in this vast cultivation world, there wouldn't be a single veterinarian specializing in treating divine beasts. That's why, from the highest-ranking medical cultivators to the lowest maidservants, not a single person could truly cure this poor, overfed alpaca. I think I must seize this opportunity. I can't guarantee how much reward I'll receive for curing this alpaca crowned as the divine beast, but I believe, at the very least, my future days will be far better than my current life as a lowly maid scrubbing chamber pots every day. After all, I'm the only veterinarian in the entire cultivation world who can treat divine beasts. At this thought, a glimmer of hope suddenly reignited in my heart. I quickly stood up and asked, "Excuse me, where can I find herbs to induce vomiting?" No one paid me any attention. Everyone remained huddled together, lamenting how wretched their fate was to be tasked with caring for the divine beast. A few people cast disdainful glances at me, but no one spoke up. Just as I was about to get up and search on my own, a young maid with twin buns timidly raised her hand. I thought about it. We might find some on the back mountain. I couldn't help feeling a surge of joy and immediately stood up excitedly. "Please take me there." The maid with twin buns was named JoJo. Her temperament was gentle and soft, with remarkably stable emotions. I always thought she resembled a capybara. She accompanied me to search the back mountain for several hours until we finally found the emetic medicinal herb. With great effort, we dried the herb into powder and sprinkled it into the alpaca's water trough. After a long while, the alpaca finally took a sip, then it raised its head to stare at me, opening its mouth wide. JoJo couldn't help but scream, "Dodge, it's going to breathe fire." Startled, I quickly hid behind a large rock. However, the alpaca just let out a burp. Then, with a splattering sound, it lowered its head and began vomiting violently. Large amounts of undigested grass and fruit, emitting a foul stench, were spewed from its mouth. The maids gathered nearby were startled. They all scolded me. "Jiang Wanin, what are you doing? If you want to die, don't drag us down with you. What did you feed the divine beast? If anything happens to it, see how you'll explain yourself to the chief steward." Even JoJo couldn't help but look at me nervously. The divine beast won't have an accident, will it?" I shook my head uncertainly. "If it can spit out the foreign object, then it'll be fine." "What foreign object?" JoJo asked, puzzled. I opened my mouth, but before I could explain, suddenly, there was a crisp click sound. Following the sound, I saw a huge luminous pearl drop from the alpaca's mouth, rolling and tumbling until it came to rest at my feet. The tension in my nerves instantly eased. I laughed. "This is the pearl. It must have accidentally swallowed it, and it got stuck in its stomach, unable to be digested or passed. That's why it's been so listless." As if to confirm my words, after spitting out the night pearl, the alpaca finally regained its energy and stood up. As if knowing I had saved it, it walked over to me and gently nuzzled against me. It was fluffy, like a cloud. "It's really good." The divine beast seems to have fully recovered. Everyone was astonished and rushed to knock on the door, eagerly reporting to the guards. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just as I had expected, that lofty and rarely seen immortal venerable, upon learning of the divine beast's recovery, indeed summoned me. The immortal venerable sat solemnly upon the jade terrace, with only a beaded curtain of jade stones separating us. I couldn't clearly see his face, only faintly making out his elegant figure clad in white robes amidst the vast misty waters. His voice rang clear like the striking of metal and stone, pleasantly resonant yet carrying an indifferent tone devoid of joy or sorrow. are you Jiang Wanin? Wow. I never knew my name could sound so beautiful when spoken by someone. I never expected that the immortal venerable wouldn't be an old man, but rather a noble and aloof young man. Then I heard the immortal venerable say, I've heard you're well versed in the art of healing and have particular skill in treating spiritual beasts. That divine beast, knowing it was you who saved it, has already taken you as its master, clinging to your side every day. Since that's the case, I shall place you in charge of the beast garden, henceforth specializing in the care of spiritual creatures. Being someone who never lets a grievance go unaddressed, I immediately reported to the immortal venerable about how the palace steward had shirked responsibility by making lowly maids like us tend to the divine beast. I told the immortal venerable, if any spirit pets or divine beasts fall ill in the future, have their owners come to me. I might have a way to save them. The immortal venerable agreed and issued an order to dismiss that incompetent steward. He also gave me a tray of silver and immortal pills. As I stepped out of the palace gates, I stretched contentedly, feeling refreshed and invigorated. Then I gave all the silver rewarded by the immortal venerable to Zhou, heaping only those medicinal pills that could cure illnesses, thanks to her this time. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to save the alpaca so smoothly without knowing anything about medicinal herbs. Zhou took the tray filled with silver, and suddenly her eyes turned red. I was stunned, at a complete loss. No, don't cry. I don't want to either. It's just, I've never seen so much money before. Zhou carefully cradled the pile of silver in both hands, shaking her head desperately while choking back sobs, so she was just overwhelmed with excitement. I couldn't help but laugh. Zhou and I strolled slowly along the path, recalling the figure of the immortal venerable. I couldn't help but ask curiously, I've heard that those with formidable immortal arts all have their own spirit companions. What is the immortal venerable's spirit companion? Zhou shook her head. The immortal venerable doesn't have one. He was born of the Phoenix clan, possessing boundless divine power from birth, so he has no need for divine beasts to accompany him. I nodded. Got it. So the immortal venerable was actually a divine beast all along. I couldn't help but recall the ancient poem. Jade breaks on Kunlun Mountain as phoenixes cry, lotuses weep dew while fragrant orchids smile. Phoenixes are legendary divine birds from antiquity, you know. No wonder the immortal venerable's voice was so pleasant to hear. There was no time to dwell on that beautiful immortal venerable anymore, because a sea of people had already gathered at my door. In this world, there are only medical practitioners who treat humans, none who treat beasts. Yet for those highly accomplished cultivators, spirit beasts are life and death companions. After all, the days of immortal cultivation are endless, and most cultivators have already seen through the mundane world, no longer troubled by love. Most of the time, they only have their spirit companions by their side. So when word spread that I had the ability to heal spirit companions, a long line immediately formed outside my small room. Those sect elders and top cultivators, who could usually only be seen once every 100 years at the disciple recruitment ceremony, now stood outside my door one by one, cradling their spirit companions, eagerly looking forward to meeting me with sincere longing in their eyes. The venerable abbot clasped his hands together and asked earnestly, Amitba, this old monk has a perplexing matter. My spiritual companion, the golden lion, always sheds tears when listening to my sutra lectures. I lowered my head and locked eyes for a moment with the teary-eyed golden lion standing beside the abbot. After some thought, I replied seriously, the incense smoke in your hall is too thick. Switch to smokeless incense. Also, this lion was born with trichiasis. That is to say, its eyelashes are naturally too long. The abbot suddenly understood. So that's how it is. The divine doctor is truly knowledgeable and experienced, but while the incense is easy to deal with, its eyelashes. What should we do about them? I snapped my fingers. Easy. I'll just give it a garlic skin lift. Double eyelids will do the trick. Half an hour later, the abbot led away the freshly double-eyelid golden lion, profusely thanking me as he left. The next patient's family member was the Holy Maiden of the Joyous Union sect. The Holy Maiden had a delicate figure, with her delicate brows slightly furrowed. In her arms, she held a large black cat with sleek, glossy fur. Doctor, my cat goes into heat 7 or 8 times a year, howling day and night, and often refuses to eat. I'm truly at my wit's end. Damn, a cat's heat cycle lasts over a month. By that calculation, this cat basically never gets a break. I thought for a moment. Maybe it's because you practice the joy union sex techniques, so your cat got influenced too. The Saintess blushed slightly. Then what should we do? Simple. I kindly brandished the small knife. Just a quick snip will do. Meow. The black cat suddenly shuddered, instinctively clamping its hind legs together in alarm. Alas, resistance was futile. As a staunch advocate of feline neutering, I swiftly had him fixed in no time. Turning over a new leaf to become a proper cat, the Saintess was delighted, and so was I, only the cat glared at me with resentment, as if accusing me of heartlessness. I calmly waved at the cat. This kind of thing I've done too many times. I've long since developed a strong heart. Within just a few days, my reputation as Physician Jiang, specialist in treating spiritual pets' puzzling ailments, spread throughout the entire cultivation world. Every cultivator who brought their spiritual pets to me for treatment praised my miraculous healing hands. Early one morning, I was awakened by a frantic knocking at the door. I was so startled that I nearly rolled off the bed with the quilt in my arms, thinking something terrible had happened. But when I cautiously cracked the door open, I saw a 2-meter-tall, burly man standing at my doorstep, wailing loudly. I blinked several times before recognizing him as the guardian of the immortal Venerable. Renowned for his exceptional bravery and combat skills, Dr. Jiang. Seeing me open the door, the guardian stopped crying and smiled. In his excitement, he even blew a big snot bubble. My spirit beast is dying. Please save him. I instinctively looked beside him, empty as can be. I froze for a moment, then raised my gaze higher. This time I finally saw it. Embedded within the Dharma Protector's chest, covered in ferocious black tattoos, was a tiny, squeaking yellow guinea pig. The guinea pig's bottom is round and plump, with small black beady eyes. Looking like a giant potato, clearly very well cared for. I was utterly astonished. Never expected that the exceptionally fierce and formidable guardian would keep such a tiny, adorable spirit pet, and this guinea pig seems quite lively. Doesn't look sick at all. I asked, what's wrong? There are 2 lumps growing on its chest. As he spoke, the Dharma Protector started shedding tears again. He wiped his face and began rambling. When I found it, it had just been born, not even as big as my finger. Its own mother abandoned it, so I became both father and mother, raising it through thick and thin for 300 years. I even had to hold it while sleeping at night. If anything happens to it, I won't live either. The legendary war god guardian, renowned for his bravery in battle, who once piled 30,000 demon soldiers' heads into a small mountain, was now crying like Lin Dayu before me. I suddenly remembered back at the pet hospital. I often saw a burly professional boxer bringing in a Maltese dog wearing a butterfly hairpin and a pink dress for vaccinations. Every time the Maltese doesn't want to get a shot, he puts on a heartbroken face and says in his gruff voice, "Don't be scared, baby. Daddy will blow on it. Pain, pain, go away." It seems that no matter the time or place, tough men automatically turn into motherly figures when faced with something fluffy. I quickly comforted him while deftly flipping over the guinea pig's belly to check. Then, I let out a soft sigh of relief. "It's not a bump," I earnestly told him. "That's its nipple. Perfectly normal." Wah, a hick. The Dharma Protector's crying abruptly ceased. His expression brightened with joy, but soon, he blinked his swollen eyes and frowned in confusion. "Wait, miracle doctor, it's male." I sighed. Pointing at his bulging chest, he said, "You're a man too. Don't you have them as well?" The atmosphere suddenly turned silent. The Dharma Protector and I stared at each other in silence. A moment later, a sudden pft sound broke the stillness. Jojo, who had rushed over in a hurry, was the first to burst out laughing. Unable to hold it in any longer, the Dharma Protector blinked, then lowered his head to glance at his own chest. Then he raised his head again. The simpleton scratched his head and said, "Huh, you're right." When I saw the Dharma Protector and his guinea pig out, I taught him a few more things about raising guinea pigs. The Dharma protector quickly conjured a small notebook from his palm, carefully noted down every word I said, and then left with endless thanks. Just moments later, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned to look at me again. After hesitating for a moment, he spoke up, "Dear Jiang, you look very familiar." I was taken aback and touched my face. I never expected my face to be so common. Is that so? Zhou also smiled. The Guardian has been fighting battles everywhere to quell the demonic calamity. How could he have possibly met Wanyin before? Perhaps I saw you in the demon realm. The Guardian said it almost instinctively. But after speaking, he too began to laugh. How could someone from the demon realm be as kind and wise as Dr. Jiang? I've spent too much time on the battlefield, accustomed to fighting and killing. My suspicious nature is hard to shake. Please don't take offense. I shook my head, saying it was fine. A demon realm spy. That's the kind of complex identity reserved for a novel's female lead. An ordinary person like me would at best be an extra in the background, I thought to myself. That very evening, I was washing carrots by the stream. Suddenly, a crumpled paper ball hit me on the head. I froze for a moment, then unfolded the paper. The writing above was like ghostly scribbles, crooked and twisted. Yet miraculously I could somehow understand what those characters meant without being taught. Chant, meet in the peach grove at the third watch. There's a mission to assign. This is, who left it for me? Could it be that I really am a spy from the demon realm? I held the crumpled paper ball, completely baffled. The alpaca that had been waiting nearby could no longer contain itself. It snorted twice, walked up to me, bent down, and unceremoniously plucked a carrot from the basket. Then it nudged my arm with its nose, clearly asking to be petted. I rubbed its head and said, "Good boy, let's go." I casually tore the paper ball into pieces and tossed them into the stream. Then I walked nonchalantly into the Imperial Beast Garden with the alpaca in tow. The battles between the cultivation world and the demon realm were endless. No matter what identity this body had before or what love and hatred it carried, from the moment I transmigrated here, all those matters came to an end. I'm just an ordinary person without grand ambitions. As long as I can happily pet cats and cuddle dogs every day, I'm perfectly content. I absolutely refuse to get involved in those complicated fights and killings. When I heard the tolling of the Donghuang bell, I was performing chiropractic surgery on a basin-sized turtle. This turtle, named Laifu, had fallen while climbing stairs and injured its neck. Its owner, Abbas Tsihong, said the crooked-headed turtle looked not only pitiful but also comical. So she sought my help to treat it, hoping it would recover quickly. Dong, the bell tolled faint yet heavy, its echoes lingering endlessly. My hands paused mid-motion as I silently counted the bell tolls in my heart, 14 chimes. This signifies a demonic invasion, with the cultivation world warning all cultivators to prepare for battle. After a moment's thought, I calmly continued treating the turtle. There was nothing to be done about it. Since I don't know any immortal arts and can't go up to help fight, and if the demons truly break through, there's nowhere for me to run anyway. Might as well focus on healing the turtle, so I steadied my nerves. Wrapping 2 wooden sticks of equal width to the turtle's head on either side of its neck, then carefully winding layer after layer of gauze around them. Just as I was searching for scissors to cut the gauze, the sound of bells outside the window faded away. Had the battle ended so soon? Has it only been 2 or 3 minutes? I froze. Just then, Zhou rushed in, her usually calm face now unusually animated with excitement. Wanyin, oh my, why are you still working? I smiled, my hands still busy with my task. Did you just go to watch the commotion? Yes, you'll never guess what just happened. Zhou rushed over, waving her hands excitedly as she vividly recounted to me. The second prince of the demon clan sneaked into the immortal venerable's bedchamber with his soldiers, trying to ambush him. But who was the immortal venerable? He saw right through those scoundrels' schemes in an instant. Zhou's eyes sparkled. At that time, I was standing at the foot of the mountain and saw countless golden rays of light shining from the immortal venerable's palace. There were even the cries of phoenixes. then a massive magic array appeared in the sky, and with a wave of the immortal venerable's sleeve, all those demon soldiers were sealed into the demon-suppressing tower. The demon-suppressing tower, yes, it's the most powerful magical artifact in the cultivation world, specifically designed to subdue demons. While tying a pretty bow with gauze around the turtle, I casually asked, how many demon soldiers came in total? Jojo thought carefully before answering, about a dozen or so. I blinked, just in time to meet the turtle's beady little eyes. Both human and beast simultaneously saw confusion reflected in each other's gaze. The second prince of the demon clan, leading a mere dozen soldiers, traveled thousands of miles to deliver himself to the stronghold of the immortal cultivation world. What kind of fearless spirit is this? After pondering for a long time, I could only conclude that the second prince of the demon clan had an underdeveloped cerebellum. I shook my head, picked up the turtle, and placed it on the sunning platform. Then I told Jojo, I'm going to sleep for a while. Wake me at the third watch tonight as usual. I need to gather herbs in the back mountain. It wasn't until Jojo took me herb gathering in the back mountain that I realized how spiritually rich that place was. Not only do many cultivators go there to practice, but it also grows all kinds of rare spiritual herbs. These herbs possess exceptionally potent medicinal properties, making them perfect for treating various ailments of spirit beasts. Jojo nodded without hesitation. Got it. Don't worry, I'll keep track of the time. Third watch. Back mountain. The night was pitch black, with a gloomy haze shrouding the back mountain. Only the faint spiritual glow of various mystical herbs and flowers quietly emanated in the darkness. Holding my glazed lantern, I had just picked up a lingji mushroom when suddenly a series of sharp, frantic bird cries erupted overhead. This was the sound birds make when they encounter danger, assuming it was a venomous snake hunting a small bird. I cautiously raised my lantern and looked up, alert, but I saw a black cat standing on the tree, holding a struggling bird in its mouth. The black cat had a big round face and glossy fur, and the more I looked at it, the more familiar it seemed, but I wasn't sure. So after a moment of silence, I bent down awkwardly. I carefully examined the area beneath the black cat's tail. Flat, no balls, just as expected. It's the one raised by the saintess. It seems to be recovering well from the surgery. Just a few days later, it's already out and about, frolicking again. I greeted the patient I'd once treated with practiced ease. Hello there, little eunuch. Would you kindly put down the bird in your mouth? The black cat clearly didn't appreciate the nickname, instantly puffing up its fur and yowling loudly at me. With a plop, the bird in its mouth fell to the ground. Amidst a chorus of meows, I calmly picked at my ear, though I don't speak cat. I knew it must be cursing up a storm. Go ahead and curse. I looked up at the black cat with a benevolent smile. I still have your 2 eggs stored at my place. When you're done cursing, I'll drag you back and let you watch as I slice them up and grill them for a snack with my drink. The black cat froze. Its yowling abruptly ceased. Even this worldly wise creature seemed unprepared for my ruthless cruelty. It let out an indignant meow, then clamped its tail and leaped onto the branch of another tree, swiftly making its escape. Silence returned to the surroundings. I looked down at the bird lying on the ground, orange-red in color. It somewhat resembled a macaw, yet also bore a likeness to a pheasant. I truly couldn't discern its breed, for its fur was soaked with what could either be filthy water or a black cat's saliva, mixed with mud from the ground, dripping wet and utterly grimy. Moreover, one of its wings had already festered, faintly entwined with dark demonic energy. It must have been a bird accidentally wounded during the demon clan's assault. I hesitated for a moment, then sighed. I picked up the bird and cradled it in my palms. To save this bird, the first step was to cleanse the demonic energy from its wings. Since I lacked immortal arts, I had no choice but to seek help from the powerful guardian adept in such magic. The guardian laughed heartily and readily agreed to my request, yet when I handed the bird to him, he froze for a moment. This bird feels so familiar to me, the Dharma protector murmured, rubbing his gleaming bald head, but I can't recall where I've seen it before. I was equally puzzled and could only tentatively ask, is this type of bird commonly seen in the back mountains? No, birds of this color are quite rare. The Dharma protector shook his head, after pondering seriously for a while. He still shook his head in frustration. I feel like I saw it on some battlefield or during a cultivation conference. Where was it? Just as I was about to say, since this bird is so special, maybe I should leave it with you. But the Dharma protector had already waved his hand dismissively. Forget it. If I can't remember, it must mean it's not important. The Dharma protector clicked his tongue, then focused his energy and began forming a divine seal with his fingers. I'll help you purge the demonic energy from this bird right now. When Jojo got up yawning, I was sitting in the yard carving thick peppercorn wood into flat planks. The turtle with a huge bow on its head obediently lay beside me, watching me work intently with its beady little eyes the size of mung beans. Seeing this, Jojo burst out laughing. She reached out to touch the bow on the turtle's head and asked, "Isn't its neck almost healed? Why are you carving branches again, Jinyao?" I tilted my head, signaling Jojo to look at the newly hung birdcage under the corridor. I just found a bird with a dislocated wing. It needs to be splinted. At that moment, the bird was fluttering up and down inside the cage. After having its demonic energy removed, it woke up quickly, but seemingly unaccustomed to being caged. It kept trying to fly out. It seemed to understand that Jojo and I were talking about it, as its cries grew noticeably louder. Jojo covered her ears in pain. Its cries are so unpleasant, yet louder than a broken gong. How does it still have the energy to make such a fuss when it's sick? And what kind of bird is this? I've never seen one like it before. I hadn't expected this bird to be such a rare breed. Not only had the guardian of the cultivation world never seen it, but even Jojo, who was born in this mortal realm, didn't recognize it. I searched my memories from before the transmigration and shook my head honestly. What a coincidence. I've never seen it either, so Jojo and I stared at it intently for quite a while. Perhaps our gazes were too intense. The bird got scared. The cry abruptly ceased. Our eyes remained fixed on it without blinking. The bird tucked its head in further, cautiously edging toward the corner of the cage, trying to make itself inconspicuous. I blinked my eyes. My gaze wandered over its orange-red, neither long nor short tail feathers as I hesitated. Perhaps it's a stunted young pheasant. Jojo slapped the table and had an epiphany. No wonder I felt hungry the moment I saw it. Ha, Juanine. You're so knowledgeable. As soon as Jojo finished speaking, the pheasant in the cage suddenly started squawking again. Look, it's agreeing with you, praising how clever you are. Jojo sighed with emotion. I modestly waved my hand. Oh, this is nothing special. As I spoke, I picked up the anesthetic that had already cooled by my side. Jojo, come help me. I'll pour this medicine down its throat. Jojo had been by my side for quite some time and had already mastered the skill of administering medicine to all kinds of spirit pets. There was no other way. Although spirit pets could understand human speech, their mental capacity was equivalent to that of 6 or 7-year-old children. And they were still terrified of taking bitter medicine, yet this pheasant was exceptionally strong-willed. No matter how Jojo tried to coax or pry its beak open, it kept frantically shaking its neck, refusing to yield, preferring death to opening its mouth. The medicinal broth spilled all over the floor, turning the scene into complete chaos. Jojo shrieked, "My brand new clothes, damn pheasant, where do you think you're running? I refuse to believe I can't do this today. I will force this medicine down your chicken throat." The pheasant seemed to sense Jojo's anger and knew it couldn't fly yet. So it stood up and began sprinting around the courtyard with its stubby little legs working furiously. Clip-clop, clip-clop, it leaped onto the table, let out a shrill shriek, and then darted straight into the pond. In an instant, the entire courtyard was engulfed in a cloud of dust, with brooms, baskets, deck chairs, and clotheslines toppled everywhere. The turtle lying on the sun deck nearby seemed frightened by the scene, struggling to twist its crooked neck in an attempt to retreat into its shell. Upon realizing the wooden board tied around its neck was too thick to allow retreat, it stubbornly stretched out its front claws and covered its own head. Clearly afraid of being implicated, it dared not take another look. In the end, it was I who managed to pin down that pheasant with a net. I crouched down and saw sheer anger in its beady little eyes the size of mung beans. I couldn't help but laugh. With a chuckle, I asked, "You don't want to be held by the neck to take medicine?" The pheasant nodded, then shook its head, then it stretched its legs, flapped, and laboriously turned around. I tentatively interpreted its body language once more. "You still claim you're not a pheasant?" It nodded again. This time the nod was noticeably more vigorous than before. As if it were extremely eager to agree with me, I asked, "Then what should I call you?" "Bird." It hesitated, then nodded reluctantly as if troubled. I laughed and said, "All right then, I'll treat your illness now. You mustn't move, or I'll give you to the black cat." Hearing this, it truly quieted down and obediently stayed in place. Fortunately, there was still some anesthetic left in the pot. I scooped another bowl and placed it in front of it. It lowered its neck, sniffed the scent, then voluntarily began sipping it in small mouthfuls. I timed it and waited for half an hour, making sure the anesthetic had taken effect, then picked up a small wooden stick to set its bone and bandage the wound. After it woke up, seeing its mental state appeared normal, I turned to tidy up the medical instruments. After I finished packing everything, I turned around only to find it was no longer in its original spot. I froze for a moment, then began searching frantically, afraid that some passing cat might have snatched it away again. Then, with an accidental glance upward, I discovered it had actually climbed onto my recliner, lying there stiffly asleep like a human. Its two wings were pressed against its sides, legs stretched straight out, with its claws curled up primly in a delicate hook. Seeing this scene, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. Who would have thought this pheasant-like bird would appear so tsundere? Actually, it's quite adorable. This bird has good physical constitution. Its wounds are healing quickly. I truly couldn't bear its muddy, filthy appearance, so on a sunny day, I gave it a thorough bath, scrubbing it clean from head to toe. Most creatures in the cultivation world possess spiritual awareness, and this bird was no exception. It even knew how to feel shy. Throughout the entire bath, it kept its head lowered, not daring to look at me, tucking it so low it nearly buried its little head in its chest. I could tell its intelligence far surpassed that of ordinary spirit pets, so I didn't dare laugh at it openly. I held back my laughter the entire time while washing it. Perhaps it was due to the spiritual herbs it had been consuming during this period that its feathers transformed from orange red to a pure, fiery crimson, shimmering brilliantly under the sunlight. Truly a magnificent sight. I even silently suspected in my heart that this bird might actually be a mutated turkey. Its temper was as striking and unique as its appearance. It possessed an exceedingly haughty disposition. It's also extremely picky about food. It won't eat insects or birdseed, only spirit fruits and dew. At first I didn't know this, so I chopped up fresh millet mixed with vegetable leaves and sprinkled it into the cage's feeding dish. The result, the moment I turned to leave, I immediately heard a loud clang. I turned around in shock, only to realize it had actually kicked over the food bowl. As if to tell me it was deliberate, the bird tilted its head, stiffened its neck, and even stretched out its claw to give the bowl another kick, wearing an arrogant expression that clearly said, "What are you gonna do about it?" It was practically a carbon copy of that anti-fatso smashing plates meme. Hey, this little thing is quite rebellious. I glared at it angrily, wanting to scold it. The bird didn't back down either, staring back at me with its beady little eyes. We locked eyes for a moment. In the end, I was the one who lost. Whatever, why argue with a bird? In for a penny, in for a pound, I'll endure it. I turned around, dejected and resigned, lowering my head as I headed to the back mountain to pick spirit fruits for it. Yet that alpaca, which had always been independent and disdained playing with other spirit pets, surprisingly took a great liking to this bird. It often ran over to curry favor, not only willingly offering up spirit fruits it usually couldn't bear to part with, but also diligently grooming its feathers. But the bird always wore an expression of disdain, remaining utterly unmoved. If the alpaca became too annoying, the bird would pridefully lift a tiny claw to kick away the alpaca's attempt at nuzzling, then hop off the table alone to stroll around the courtyard, occasionally tilting its head at a 35-degree angle to gaze melancholically at the sky. Yes, it couldn't fly due to its injured wing, so it had no choice but to walk gracefully instead, perhaps because I healed its injury. It no longer guarded against me and allowed me to touch it, but whenever Jojo tried to stroke its beautiful long tail feathers, it would squawk angrily, even once pecking Jojo's hand until it bled. What kind of pet is this? You can only look, not touch. It should just go to the treasure room and be an antique for exhibition only. Jojo winced as I bandaged her wound, unable to resist complaining in pain. Ouch, it pecks so hard, my hand feels like it's on fire now. I've never seen such a disobedient bird. It's not an animal at all, clearly just a high-maintenance lord. Jojo's complaints came one after another, but I didn't chime in with her, because I was lost in thought. I also sensed this bird was no ordinary creature. The guardian under the immortal venerable had seen it on some extremely solemn occasions. It recovered astonishingly fast despite severe injuries. Its intelligence far surpassed that of ordinary spirit pets, and its various habits resembled those of a human. I had long since painted a portrait of this bird and posted it on the bulletin boards of the cultivation world, hoping to help find its owner. Yet after all this time, its owner still hadn't come forward. The numerous suspicious points are enough to indicate that this bird harbors an enormous mystery. I don't know any immortal arts. Keeping such an intelligent yet rebellious spirit creature by my side would inevitably become a hidden danger. I sighed helplessly and said, once it recovers from its illness, I'll release it back into the rear mountains. But the bird's illness hadn't improved yet. Yet I found myself in serious trouble. The spirit beasts in the beast-taming garden had been collectively poisoned. After investigation, it was discovered they had drunk water contaminated with demonic energy. This is the realm of immortal cultivation. Who brought the demonic energy into the beast-taming garden? And by what means was it secretly poured into the water without anyone noticing? Everyone was completely baffled. Jojo began carefully investigating all personnel who had entered or exited in recent days, while the guardian also came to assist me in purging the demonic energy from the spirit beasts. In the midst of this frenzied activity, a man suddenly stormed in with numerous guards, his face filled with rage. Jiang Wanin, you dare collude with the demonic clansman? Someone, seize her. The guards surrounded me, wielding clubs and swords. The situation grew tense. I frowned, feeling the leader's face looked strangely familiar. After staring at him for a while, I finally remembered. This man used to be the chief steward of the Celestial Palace. Back then, he had tried to pin the blame on us maidservants when he feared the alpacas might die of illness, so I had reported him to the immortal lord. Judging by his attire now, he must have been demoted to just an ordinary guard captain. He probably harbors deep resentment toward me, which is why he's so eager to slander me as a demon spy, trying to push me into a desperate situation. You're lying. Jojo instinctively stepped in front of me, shielding me with all her might. I've been with Wanin every single day. I can prove she has nothing to do with the demon clan. You. The man sneered with a mocking tone. Who's to say you're not her accomplice? How dare you say that? Jojo's face flushed red with anger. I think it's people like you who casually sling mud at others that are the real spies. Seeing many cultivators gathering around to watch, I quickly held Jojo back and calmly addressed the crowd. If I were truly a demon spy, no matter how foolish I was, I would never have sprinkled demonic energy into the water drunk by the spirit beasts of the Beast Garden. The Beast Garden is under my supervision. Wouldn't that be blatantly telling everyone there's something wrong with me? This is just sophistry. You're trying to take advantage of the situation to disrupt the cultivation world. The man raised his voice, constantly shouting to the onlookers, everyone, come see. The Beast Garden went centuries without incident, yet right after Jiang Wanin arrives, a major disaster occurs. Besides, how could an ordinary maid without even a spiritual root treat spirit beasts? Clearly her identity is suspicious. A spiritual beast's injury wouldn't cause significant impact on the cultivation world. I sneered and argued logically, following your logic, I should have sprinkled demonic energy on those powerful cultivators who came to me for treatment with their spirit pets. If something happened to them, Wouldn't the cultivation world descend into chaos even faster? Why would I go through all this trouble? As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd nodded in agreement. Physician Jiang is a good person who has saved so many small animals. There's no way she could be a spy for the demon race. Exactly. Physician Jiang is only in charge of the Imperial Beast Garden. How can they conclude she's responsible when something happens to the spirit beasts? That makes no sense at all. Truly, if you want to condemn someone, you'll never lack for charges, the man stammered. Unable to respond, after a long pause, he finally came up with another excuse. No matter what, it happened under your jurisdiction, you should still take responsibility. I spoke calmly. Whether I'm guilty or not isn't for you to decide. Why don't we let the immortal venerable judge? By the way, the demonic aura in the beast garden should also be reported to him. As I spoke, I glanced at the guardian standing to the side. His brows tightly furrowed. To my surprise, a flicker of unease crossed the guardian's face as he blocked my suggestion. The immortal venerable is in seclusion. Then we'll wait until the immortal venerable emerges from seclusion. The man actually made the decision outright. For the sake of fairness, let's first detain Jiang Wanyin in prison. Surely there's no issue with that. Zhou was on the verge of tears. No, the prison is so dark and terrifying. Wanyin is clearly innocent. How can you lock her up there? Once the investigation results come out and prove Jiang Wanyin has no connection to the demon clan, she'll naturally be released. If you're unwilling to even prove your innocence, Jiang Wanyin, are you feeling guilty? Amidst the chaos, quack, a bird's cry, split and distorted, suddenly rang out. The sound was so unpleasant, like metal scraping against a pot's bottom, that everyone stopped their clamor and covered their ears. Yet to me, this bird's call felt strangely familiar. Pushing through the crowd and following the sound, I indeed spotted a familiar bird that resembled a pheasant. Looking up at me, in its beak, it held an ancient-looking mirror. Is this the mirror of insight? The guardian exclaimed in surprise. I was completely baffled. What? This is a magical artifact left by the immortal venerable in the treasure pavilion. It can reveal all past events in the world. The Dharma protector looked at the bird and fell into a complicated silence. Yet my gaze had already shifted to that mirror. Then let the Dharma protector use this mirror to recreate the events of that day. This mirror functions like surveillance footage. The crowd and I stared at the images appearing on the mirror's surface for a long time before identifying the true culprit. It was a lucky escapee, a demon soldier who had fled during the demon realm's second prince's surprise attack on our cultivation world, who had casually committed the act while retreating. The truth was revealed. The former chief steward wore a sullen expression, clearly frustrated at having failed to catch me in any wrongdoing. Seeing him about to swagger away, I called out to stop everyone. Wait, I asked the Dharma protector, since I'm innocent, shouldn't this person who tried to slander me before knowing the truth also be punished? The Dharma protector nodded solemnly and said with a serious expression, the cultivation world has no place for those who slander their peers and harbor wicked intentions. From this day forth, this person shall be demoted to the foot of the mountain to serve as a guard. In other words, they'd become a security guard watching over the mountain gates of the cultivation world. He would likely never be able to return to the cultivation world in this lifetime. The former chief steward was hoisted up by other guards and dragged down the mountain. His unwilling roars gradually faded into the distance. Zhou wiped away her tears and laughed. Seems this bird is quite useful in critical moments. I nodded in agreement. I never expected that it would be this seemingly arrogant, cold, and difficult bird that helped me in the critical moment. If it hadn't swiftly brought the magical tool in its beak, I wouldn't have escaped so smoothly. I picked up the bird, looked into its eyes, and sincerely said thank you. The bird's gaze was evasive. Not looking at me, it merely let out a faint hum from its throat, a rather condescending acknowledgement of my thanks. Only then did I notice numerous small wounds on the bird's feet, as if scraped by tiny pebbles. Its already scabbed wings began to bleed again, likely from forcing itself to take off in haste to rescue me. I laughed softly and sighed. So you're actually all bark and no bite, acting all aloof and indifferent. yet you care so much about me. Afraid something might happen to me, huh? Speaking gently as if coaxing a child, I negotiated, then be good from now on, and we'll get along nicely. All right. The bird remained silent. It merely lifted its head and gently nudged my finger. Its feathers were surprisingly soft, brushing against my fingertip with a faint tickling sensation. I froze for a moment, then burst into laughter. I thought, could this be considered a mutual agreement for peaceful coexistence? After this incident, the idea of keeping this bird as a pet and raising it properly by my side took root in my mind, so I thought I should give it a name first. After racking my brains for a long time, I finally came up with 3 names. They were Lucky, Fluffy, and Big Yellow. With democratic intentions, I wrote these 3 names on separate pieces of paper and let it choose one for itself. The bird stared at the note in silence for a long while. Then it lowered its head and patted its little head with its wing. With an air of resigned exasperation, as if face-palming in despair, it seemed to think none of the names I came up with were worthy of its status. I couldn't help but laugh. I knew this bird was clever, but I never expected it to be so picky. So I asked patiently, then tell me yourself, what do you want to be called? The bird pondered for a moment, then suddenly spread its wings and flew onto my desk. It extended one foot and gently kicked aside the medical book on the table. It rapidly flipped through the pages one by one. After a while, it suddenly pressed its foot on a particular spot in the book, then looked up and chirped at me. I walked over to take a look and found it had picked the character Jojo, who had watched the whole thing, laughed. This bird really has no shame. Not only did it reject all the names you came up with, but it even chose the same name as our immortal venerable. Hearing Jojo's remark, the bird standing on the desk suddenly became agitated, flapping its wings. It tried to pounce on Jojo. Having been pecked by it before, Jojo knew how fierce it could be. She screamed and tried to run away. I was just casually complaining, "Why are you so angry?" I also thought the bird's pride might be hurt, so I quickly shielded Jojo while trying to smooth things over with a smile. "All right. I know you have grand ambitions and want to become a phoenix too. In that case, I'll call you Zhao Zhao from now on." Zhao Zhao and I grew increasingly harmonious in our interactions. It would accompany me while gathering herbs and even fly up trees to pick spirit fruits for me. With its company, I no longer feel lonely when working alone. That day, my little cabin welcomed a new patient. It was a beagle who had burned itself while warming by the fire. Its fur was patchy, and some of the exposed flesh had already festered, looking quite horrifying. This world had no gentian violet, so I could only crush various spirit herbs into a paste and apply it to the beagle's wounds to disinfect and sterilize them. Then I fed it spiritual medicine to help its skin and flesh regenerate as quickly as possible. The owner of the beagle was an elderly Taoist priest with an air of immortality and a face weathered by time. Upon hearing my treatment plan, he nodded eagerly and clasped his hands in a respectful bow. "Dear Jiang, your kindness is boundless. Thank you for being willing to treat him." The old priest expressed his gratitude sincerely, then added, "If he misbehaves or doesn't listen during treatment, don't hesitate to give him a good beating with a stick. Please, don't hold back." His words startled me. How could any animal be perfectly obedient? If I were to beat the dog harshly for not listening, wouldn't that be outright abuse? I thought this was just the old Taoist being polite, so I quickly said, "Don't worry, I won't hit it. Besides, it's so cute, it must be very well behaved." Hearing this, the old Taoist's eyes suddenly lit up. He immediately said, "You like it? Then I'll give it to you." I froze for a moment. The old Taoist persisted earnestly, "Really? I'm truly giving it to you." I thought the old Taoist was just being overly enthusiastic and polite, not actually intending to give me his spiritual pet, so I politely declined with equal courtesy. "Let's not. I already have a bird to take care of." "All right," the old Taoist sighed, no longer insisting, though his expression showed some regret. I quickly steered the conversation back to the treatment plan. "I've examined its injuries. It'll need several days of continuous medication. You've come a long way from the Zhongnan mountain peaks. Why not leave it here with me? You can come back to pick it up in 3 days." Hearing this, the old Taoist suddenly shed tears. I was taken aback and quickly said, "If you're worried or don't want to be separated from it, you can take it with you and just bring it here on time every day." "No," the old Taoist choked out, interrupting me. "This humble priest is just too happy. What's there to be happy about?" "I don't quite understand," but the old Taoist, as if afraid I might change my mind, left the beagle with me and quickly turned to leave, watching the old Taoist's retreating figure. I inexplicably felt his steps had become much lighter than when he arrived. I couldn't comprehend the old Taoist's series of contradictory behaviors. If he loved this beagle, why was he so eager to give it to me? But if he didn't love it, why did he shed tears when parting with the dog? My confusion lasted for 10 minutes, until the beagle began emitting high-pitched donkey-like braying, truly worthy of being called the big-eared howling donkey. Its voice was so shrill. It sounded like a mad donkey singing. The noise left me dizzy and disoriented, forcing me to raise my voice in an attempt to stop it, yet my efforts to silence it proved utterly futile. It continued to howl incessantly. Zhao Zhao, standing nearby, was the first to grow impatient with the noise and gave its lame leg a hard kick. The beagle, caught off guard, fell to the ground with a thud. I was startled and, without even scolding Zhao Zhao, hurriedly reached out to check if the beagle was hurt. However, the beagle that got up again looked even more excited. The sound of its cries grew even louder, as if that kick had awakened some masochistic tendency within it. Suddenly I understood why this beagle could roast itself into such a state by the fire. The damn thing was just plain shameless. In this short evening, I'm exhausted and aching all over. When applying medicine to the beagle, it keeps squirming, shaking its body and splashing the medicine everywhere, staining my sleeves with the liquid. After I finally finish applying the medicine, it immediately rolls in the mud, getting itself all dirty again, rendering the medication completely wasted. If by some miracle the first 2 steps go smoothly, when I finally put it in the cage, it starts howling incessantly. The scream was so shrill and harrowing that even the guardian living on the distant mountaintop heard it. Rushing over with a horrified expression to ask what catastrophe had occurred, he suspected I might be secretly dismembering a corpse. By the 4th application of medicine to the beagle, I'd finally reached my limit. I grabbed a brush and slathered the medicine evenly over its entire body, as if basting barbecue sauce, then unceremoniously stuffed it into a sack, immobilizing it completely while leaving just its head exposed for breathing. I expected the beagle to keep struggling. Unexpectedly, the beagle seemed to find it quite amusing and stopped howling, focusing solely on wriggling non-stop inside the sack. I was dumbfounded. The beagle's thought process really is different from other dogs. At least it finally quieted down, with a satisfied sigh. I tossed the sack containing the beagle into the iron cage and locked it securely. Then I went back to my room to sleep with 2 huge dark circles under my eyes. I was so exhausted that I couldn't even muster the energy to wash up. After a few hours of groggy sleep, I was awakened by Jojo's screams. In a panic, I jumped out of bed without even putting on shoes and ran out barefoot, only to find that the beagle had somehow broken free from both the burlap sack and the cage. The courtyard was in complete disarray at this moment, with the burlap sack nowhere to be found and the iron cage bars bent into an O shape. The beagle stood innocently amidst a pile of shredded fabric strips, while cotton fluff drifted down continuously from the sky like snowfall. I was utterly dumbfounded as I picked cotton fluff off my head and stared at the crime scene. It took me quite some time to vaguely recognize that this pile of wreckage was actually the brand new, neatly folded blanket from last night. I suddenly understood why the old Taoist shed those 2 lines of tears when he left yesterday. It wasn't because he couldn't bear to part with the dog. Those tears were entirely for me. He was mourning the miserable life I would have to endure living with a beagle for the next few days. I only spaced out for a little while, then I heard Jojo scream again. Don't swallow it. Instinctively, I turned to look, then I let out a sharp, piercing scream. The beagle somehow dug out my glass lamp orb from somewhere and secretly put it in its mouth. I rushed over in a panic, clutching the beagle with a ferocious expression and shaking it non-stop. "You little rascal. You troublemaker, spit it out right now, woof. The beagle blinked its eyes and let out a difficult yet excited bark with a light bulb in its mouth. I tried to reach out and take the light bulb from the dog's mouth, however. That perfectly round lamp was stuck snugly in the dog's mouth. The smooth lamp bulb, now slick with dog drool, was impossible to pull out. Jojo looked on the verge of tears. What do we do now? Staring at my hand covered in dog saliva, I deadpanned. I don't want to live anymore. As someone who's been a veterinarian for 2 lifetimes, I felt genuine despair when facing an animal for the first time. And what brought me this despair wasn't a massive Siberian tiger or black bear that could bite off my arm with one snap, nor was it some hideous, centipede-like creature with countless legs. It was a beagle with an angelically adorable face. At this moment, suddenly, I remembered the online Beagle Victims Alliance from my past life. And that infamous post titled, "I once wanted to jump off a building with mine. Who on earth made an elderly Taoist priest raise a beagle? This is pure elder abuse." In the end, Jojo and I went through hell and high water to finally retrieve that disco ball. The process was so grueling that I don't even want to think about it again. Before I could even catch my breath, I realized something even worse. The beagle had chewed up all the medical supplies I'd left on the table. Yet spirit pet patients kept arriving non-stop. With no other choice, I had to rush to the human world to buy some emergency medical supplies and cages. Seeing me pack my things and pick up the token for descending the mountain, Zhao Zhao bounced over and blocked my path. It lifted its head to look at me and let out 2 soft cries. Having spent so much time with Zhao Zhao, I could now understand its meaning. It wanted to come down the mountain with me. I smiled, bent down to pat its head, and said gently, "Don't worry, I'm just going to buy some things. I'll be back soon." I stood up and slung the basket on my back. "Be good, okay? Keep an eye on that big-eared dog for me at home. And don't let it cause any more trouble." Zhao Zhao fell silent for a moment, seemingly conflicted. After a long pause, it reluctantly nodded. "Consider it agreed." I smiled. "Then I'm off, Zhao Zhao. When I return from the mortal world, I'll bring you delicious treats." It suddenly dawned on me that one really shouldn't casually set up flags like this. Just like when TV drama protagonists say, "I'll marry you when the war is over." Promises spoken aloud always seem to shatter in the most absurd and peculiar ways. I glanced at the black ropes tightly binding my hands, then looked at the bizarre-looking creatures before me, barely recognizable as men and clearly products of the demon realm, and thought despairingly, forget bringing Zhao Zhao delicious treats. Whether I can even survive this is a complete unknown. Just as I was frantically racking my brain for an escape plan, a strikingly handsome yet sinister-looking man pushed the door open and entered, with a casual wave of his hand. All the men who had been guarding me promptly left. The room was left with only me and this man. He stared at me intently for a moment, then chuckled lightly. "Wan, you've made me search for you so long." I was stunned. I felt this man was very familiar with me, but I truly didn't know who he was. It must be that the original owner of this body had some unresolved issues with him. Perhaps seeing that I remained silent, he let out a bitter laugh. "What, now you won't even speak to me?" After hesitating for a moment, I decided to go with the universal excuse. "Sorry, I've lost my memory. May I ask who you are?" The man's face before me froze. A moment later, I finally learned the man's identity. This man was the second prince of the demon realm, who had been stabbed by assassins sent by political enemies while in the human world and lay unconscious by the river. I rescued him while doing laundry outside and brought him home. Over time, we developed feelings for each other. But knowing I was just an ordinary woman who couldn't help him ascend the throne, he deceived me, promising to return to the demon clan to arrange our marriage, while actually going back to marry the fiancée his father had chosen for him. Yet several years after his marriage, he began missing me again, so he returned to the human world seeking me out, wanting to make me his concubine. But by then, heartbroken and disillusioned, I had already left to become a maid in the immortal cultivation realm. In short, it's yet another fable about never picking up strange men by the roadside. The second prince lowered his eyes. last time I secretly sneaked into the cultivation world. I used magic to send you a note. Why didn't you come find me? So that note was from him. Good thing I didn't go. I rolled my eyes internally while still trying to placate him with random words. Well, I didn't get a chance to read that note before it fell into the water and got soaked. I know you like me and want to take me back to the demon realm, but if I don't return to the cultivation world today, it'll raise suspicions. How about this? Let's set a time. Once I've arranged everything, I'll come find you. I did my best to make my expression look deeply compassionate and utterly sincere, yet the second prince stared at me for a moment before suddenly bursting into laughter. You lied to me. He lowered his eyes and sneered. You're a liar. I was at a loss for words. After a moment, I shrugged and said, all right, actually, I've been doing quite well in the cultivation world, since you already have a wife, a spouse. Let's just go our separate ways from now on. Do you really think staying in the cultivation world makes you safe? He suddenly interrupted me. That immortal sovereign in the cultivation world isn't in seclusion. He's dead. The king has already assigned me tens of thousands of troops. Once I attack, every last cultivator in the immortal realm will perish. My brain short-circuited. These few sentences contained an overwhelming amount of information. After a long pause, I finally stammered out a question. What? Seeing my expression change, the second prince smirked triumphantly. His bewitching face wore the smug satisfaction of a predator. That ambush of mine succeeded. The unprepared immortal venerable was struck down by me, his cultivation completely shattered. All this talk of secluded meditation was just a lie. He's probably long dead by now. The cultivation world has been keeping it secret, not announcing the death. Next time I break through, there'll be no one left to activate the formation and defend against our demon clan. The second prince gazed at me with sinister eyes, his lips curling into a leisurely smile. As if he were condescending to bestow some grand favor upon me, he spoke slowly. Word by word, Jiang Wanyin, I'll give you one more chance. Return to my side. The room fell into silence. After a moment, I spoke with a distant look in my eyes. Do I have any other choice besides coming back to you? A man like this who could abandon me for power proves he never loved me as much as he claimed. And with behavior like this, if he's done it once, there's no guarantee he wouldn't do it again. I don't have any feelings for him either, so I won't trust him. Besides, I don't believe that the demon-suppressing tower, such an important artifact in the cultivation world, can only be activated by the immortal venerable. That would be too unreliable. What if the immortal venerable suddenly gets diarrhea and can't go to battle? Would no one be able to subdue the demons then? I've spent so much time in the cultivation world that I've grown attached to it. I won't leave so easily. Hearing my response, the second prince of the demon clan laughed. Jiang Wanyin, didn't you think the cultivation world was wonderful? The smile on his lips abruptly vanished. Bearing a set of gleaming white teeth, he said, fine. Then I'll make you watch as it crumbles before your very eyes. 3 days later, the demon clan's second prince had me bound tightly before commanding tens of thousands of demonic minions to invade the cultivation world together. Malicious spirits cackled wildly as they surged forth, sweeping wantonly through the skies. The heavens and earth were shrouded in a gloomy gray haze. The cultivators stood ready, summoning their weapons to jointly defend against the demonic horde. Meanwhile, the spirit beasts swelled to several times their usual size, shielding their masters and joining them in battle. Those fluffy creatures, usually so fond of rolling around and acting cute, seeming lazy and useless, now transformed into true beasts of war. The golden lion crouched low with a thunderous roar, scattering countless demon soldiers in all directions. The black cat nimbly weaved through the hail of arrows, precisely striking the archer's throat with its claws. The battle grew increasingly fierce, yet the second prince laughed triumphantly. All this is in vain. With the immortal venerable dead, no one in your cultivation world can activate the artifact to resist the demon realm. As he spoke, he suddenly turned to me, pointing at the chaotic battlefield of the cultivation world, and asked, "Do you still want to stay here now?" I tentatively asked, "If I go with you, will you withdraw your troops?" The second prince scoffed, Have you been reading too many storybooks? Compared to supreme power and dominance, you're not that important. I shook my head. No, thanks, he frowned, sighing with apparent concern. But soon, everyone in the cultivation world will die. I don't want you to perish at the hands of those demonic hordes. As he spoke, he suddenly seemed to hit upon a brilliant idea and clapped his hands with laughter. In that case, I might as well kill you right now. I was fucking startled. Dude, your train of thought is more twisted than a beagle's. You're a full-blown yandere, god damn it. Must you destroy what you can't possess? According to Jojo's account, the situation at that moment was extremely perilous. A mass of demonic fire, tainted with all manner of foul energies, erupted from the second prince's mouth. Tearing through the sky, it swiftly darted past the battling demons and cultivators, heading straight for me in midair with terrifying precision. Demonic fire is the most sinister and corrupt of all. Even for cultivators of the highest cultivation levels, being struck by it would mean certain death or at least severe, crippling injury. For someone like me, an ordinary person without any magical arts to rely on, turning to ashes and smoke is but a matter of moments. My pupils constricted. There was no escape. At the critical moment, a phoenix's uniquely clear cry suddenly rang out, resounding across the entire battlefield. A pair of fiery red wings abruptly unfurled behind me. A familiar orange-red bird darted out from behind me, brushing past my side. At first glance, that bird, resembling both a pheasant and a parrot, seemed utterly insignificant. On this battlefield filled with slaughter and bloodshed, it appeared so fragile it might perish at any moment. Yet soon, its form grew increasingly distinct, its silhouette expanding to massive proportions. Beating its wings continuously, it soared higher into the sky until, having ascended to the heavens, it transformed into a true phoenix. Its entire body was fiery red, radiating heat as scorching as the sun high in the heavens. That was the unique pressure of an ancient divine beast. Seeing the demonic flames had reached within 100 paces, the phoenix spread its wings without hesitation and charged straight toward them. Black and red collided violently. It was over in an instant. That demonic fire was effortlessly dissolved, like a mayfly trying to shake a great tree. Having dealt with the demonic fire, the phoenix suddenly turned its head and glanced at me. That glance left me somewhat dazed. I parted my lips, wanting to call it Zhao Zhao as I always did, yet I hesitated again. It was no longer my Zhao Zhao. I recalled all the unusual things that had happened since I found Zhao Zhao. Its habits differed from other spirit pets. It insisted on sleeping in bed at night, demanded to eat at the table, and the wounds it pecked would burn feverishly, causing unbearable pain. Most importantly, though it couldn't speak, it understood human nature far better than any other spirit pet. It was my own dullness. I never noticed the signs. I was only momentarily stunned. That phoenix no longer looked at me. It turned over without hesitation and soared into the vast sky. Its figure circled and danced in the air, and amidst the dazzling radiance, a massive magical seal appeared in the sky. Immediately after, a demon-suppressing pagoda suddenly emerged, wielding overwhelming force to sweep away all demonic energy. No, the second prince stretched out his hand, letting out a desperate roar. Yet now he could only watch helplessly as all the demonic beings silently dissolved into wisps of black smoke. Completely absorbed by the demon-suppressing pagoda, finally regaining his senses, the second prince realized the dire situation. Squinting his eyes that ached from the golden light, he hastily began forming hand seals in an attempt to flee. But the phoenix circling in the sky detected his intention before he could act. A long cry, it turned its body and flew toward the second prince like a shooting star, in the blink of an eye. It moved so fast that the cultivators present only caught a distant glimpse of a golden light, like an arrow, piercing through the second prince's body. The second prince staggered. His eyes widened in what seemed like unwillingness or disbelief as he lowered his head to look at his chest. There was now a hole there. Amidst the rampant golden light, his demonic energy was rapidly draining away. Finally unable to hold on any longer, his knees buckled and he collapsed to the ground. Then, facing a pool of filthy muddy water, he fell face first to the ground, from start to finish, not a single drop of blood was spilled, only a few specks of dust were stirred up. This young second prince had been full of lofty ambitions during his lifetime, determined to unite the realms of immortals and demons, treating the cultivation world as a grand training ground for the demon race, but unfortunately, all his ambitions were cut short by the divine venerable, who should have perished yet inexplicably emerged again from some obscure corner. The turn of events came too swiftly, leaving him with nothing in the end. Only the abbot stepped forward, embodying the great compassion of the Buddha also redeems fools and idiots, offering him a few chants and passages of scripture as a send-off for his reincarnation, hoping he would be a better person in his next life. I gazed from afar at the second prince lying motionless on the ground, still immersed in shock. I found it hard to regain my composure. I never expected that the bird I saved, which looked so much like a pheasant, would turn out to be the phoenix immortal. In a way, I suppose I deserve some credit for how quickly this war ended. I blinked and laughed wryly, trying to find humor in the bitter situation. It seems I can add a brilliant stroke to my medical career record. I once successfully treated a phoenix, with remarkable results that earned widespread acclaim in the cultivation world. After the war ended, I bandaged the wounds of spirit pets injured in battle. The guinea pig had returned to the size of a potato, lying on its back on the table, belly up and whimpering coquettishly at me, clearly suffering from overeating. The corner of my mouth twitched as I massaged its belly. Yet I couldn't help recalling how ferociously it had devoured 20 demon soldiers in one gulp just moments ago. Perhaps this is the true embodiment of the weak, pitiful, but capable of eating anything. Jojo beside me was clearly still shaken from the fright. She handed me the gauze with one hand while staring blankly and speaking to me. "You're both unlucky and fortunate. You got captured by demons just from going down the mountain, but luckily the immortal venerable saved you in the end." The immortal venerable is actually that fierce and temperamental mountain pheasant. Oh heavens! I tormented it so mercilessly before. Will the immortal venerable hold a grudge? Will he punish me with hard labor? I'm still young. I haven't had my fill of good days yet. I quickly reassured him. That won't happen. Don't scare yourself like this. Neither of us knew that Bird was the immortal venerable at the time. His Excellency is magnanimous and wouldn't hold a grudge against you. Besides, the great war between immortals and demons just ended, and he's only recently regained human form. He must have countless matters to attend to, certainly no time to come seeking revenge. Jiang Huanin. Before I could finish speaking, a detached male voice came from the doorway. Turning toward the sound, I saw a figure clad in white robes standing tall and straight. Her jade-like face remained expressionless, yet at this moment I clearly glimpsed how those dark pupils beneath long lashes were no longer calm like a clear lake, but carried a faint trace of amusement. We stood facing each other across a distance of 30 feet. After a moment, I snapped out of my daze. Joyfully stepping forward, I instinctively called out, "Zhao," but I quickly regained my composure, and my words abruptly stopped. I paused, bowed my head respectfully, and called out, "Immortal Venerable." The faint smile in the immortal venerable's eyes vanished in an instant. He pursed his lips, turned away without looking at me, and merely instructed me in a serious tone, "Follow me." Jojo took one look at the situation and immediately panicked. With a strong sense of loyalty, she tried to grab my wrist. "Immortal Venerable, let's not mince words. What are you planning to do with Huanin if you take her away?" The immortal venerable glanced sideways at her with an indifferent gaze. Jojo instantly fell silent. Then, with lightning speed, she withdrew the hand that had grabbed my wrist and plastered on a smile brighter than a peony in full bloom. His tone changed as well. "Take care on your way out, Immortal Venerable. Feel free to call if you need anything." Me standing nearby. What a backstabbing friend. This is absolutely a backstabbing friend. That ambush by the demon clan did leave me severely wounded, but it wasn't fatal. To recover my divine power more quickly, and also to lull the demon clan into complacency, to tempt them into revealing their ambitions by invading the cultivation world, I simply faked my own death. This way, I could openly annihilate them all when they came to attack. As for being, attacked by the black cat, and then being picked up by you, those were completely unplanned developments on my part. I sat meekly across from Feng Zhao, silently listening to his explanations one after another. In short, I didn't mean to deceive you, nor did I intentionally disguise my identity. It's just that at that time, my primordial spirit was damaged and I could barely maintain the form of a bird, A1. Please believe me. As he spoke, Feng Zhao reached his slender hand across the table, trying to grasp my sleeve as he usually did. His fingers were slightly cool, completely different from Zhao Zhao's always warm and toasty little paws. The moment they barely grazed the back of my hand, I instinctively stood up, took a few steps back, and respectfully called out, "Immortal Venerable." Feng Zhao's expression showed a clear moment of hesitation. After a long pause, he let out a soft chuckle. "You still won't forgive me, will you?" I shook my head quite seriously. "No, Immortal Venerable, I'm not angry with you. Being able to save you and help treat your injuries was just a fortunate coincidence. The Immortal Venerable must have had good reasons for concealing your identity. I'm truly not angry. It's just that now that I know you're the Immortal Venerable, I can't possibly be as presumptuous as before. I must show proper respect and always remember your exalted status." I think my words were already watertight and extremely respectful, yet somehow, the more considerately I tried to explain and cover for the Immortal Lord, the colder his expression became. I shrank my neck, inexplicably feeling as though this eternally spring-like palace had suddenly turned into a giant ice cellar. Seeing the situation turning bad, it's best to make a quick escape. So I quickly made up an excuse and began stealthily backing away. "Well, Immortal Venerable, the Guardian just brought in several animals burned by demonic fire. They're still waiting for me to treat them. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." "Jiang Wanyin, you stop right there," Feng Zhao suddenly asked me with visible irritation. "Have you fallen for someone else and want to keep other pets now?" What a strange question, and is the term shifting affection even appropriate to use in this context? Not knowing how to respond, I could only ignore the first part of Feng Zhao's statement and reply, "I never intended to keep any other animals. They were injured, and I happened to come across them, so I just helped them out. That's all there is to it." Hearing this, Feng Zhao's expression brightened slightly. Seeing my anxious look to leave, his face darkened again in an instant. "Where are you going?" "Back to my own place. You're not allowed to leave." Feng Zhao raised his voice, glaring at me fiercely. "You'll stay here and live with me from now on." I'm stunned, coming to my senses. I quickly waved my hands. "This isn't proper, is it? Besides, I still need to treat spirit beasts. I can't always stay." "What's stopping you?" Feng Zhao cut me off, then suddenly stood up with a whoosh, speaking in a perfectly natural tone. "Just move all your tools over to my place. How about setting up your consultation area in the jade pool behind my bedchamber from now on? The air is fresh. The environment is pleasant, there are mountains and water, and the space is open. Most importantly, it's close to both the back hills and the dwellings of the cultivators. Not only will it be convenient for you to gather spirit fruits and herbs daily, but it'll also be easy for the cultivators to bring their spirit pets to you for treatment, killing multiple birds with one stone. Don't you think?" Feng Zhao looked at me, coaxing persuasively. With a face full of "I'm only thinking of your best interests, considerate virtue," I remained silent, studying Feng Zhao with a probing gaze. I strongly suspected that the plan to have me move in was something he had schemed long ago when he was still a bird. That's why he could now produce so many perfectly reasonable justifications in one breath. Seeing my hesitation, Feng Zhao continued to persuade, "You should at least consider your own safety, shouldn't you? Those demon clan members are extremely cunning. Without the second prince, there's still the first prince. And you're the only beast-healing medic in the cultivation world who can cure spirit beasts, which makes you even more likely to draw their hatred. My palace chambers are heavily guarded. Ordinary demons can't enter, so it's safer for you to stay here." That was undeniably true. Still haunted by the last incident, I was genuinely afraid of being kidnapped or attacked by demons again. Without any cultivation arts to protect myself, if I kept living in that remote place, I might get ambushed and quietly killed one day without anyone knowing. I wavered. After hesitating for a moment, I finally nodded and agreed, saying, "All right," no matter how noble the reason sounded. Once night fell, Feng Zhao's true colors were revealed. Who would believe that the illustrious phoenix immortal of the cultivation world has a habit of climbing into other people's beds? I was startled and sat up, eyeing him warily. "What are you doing?" Feng Zhao's ears turned slightly red, yet he maintained an expression of righteous dignity. "Ahem, this is close protection." Seeing the disdain and doubt in my eyes, he loudly defended himself. "Besides, didn't we always sleep together at night before?" I sighed. "Before you were a bird. And now you're—" I didn't continue, just let my gaze drop downward. His gaze swept over the faintly visible, well-defined abdominal muscles concealed beneath the white gauze pajamas, along with his lean and powerful waist. Then he silently averted his eyes. Ahem, one shouldn't stare at what's improper. It seemed he had realized that the tactic of persistent pestering wasn't working. Feng Zhao started playing the victim again. He put on a pitiful expression and said, "My bed is too big and too wide. And I can't sleep alone without holding you." I was both amused and exasperated. Even making up lies shouldn't be this outrageous. You've lived for millions of years before this. Didn't you always sleep alone like this? I looked at him with a half smile. What? After just a few months sleeping with me, you're already not used to it? Seeing that I absolutely wouldn't agree, Feng Zhao fell silent. I thought he was about to leave since he couldn't find an excuse, but the next instant, with a pop sound, right before my eyes, Feng Zhao actually transformed back into his bird form again. In my astonished gaze, that familiar, pheasant-like bird flopped down with practiced ease, lying sideways on my pillow. Its two bean-sized eyes stared at me, wearing an expression that seemed to say, "Honestly, what am I going to do with you?" Happy now, that uniquely tsundere mix of exasperation and pride, me, just to sleep beside me. He could endure reverting to this scruffy bird form, the very appearance he used to despise so much. He was simply too diligent. I truly couldn't bring myself to say the words to drive him away anymore. I had no choice but to reluctantly agree. Yet whenever I see this bird, I still recall Feng Zhao's original form. To avoid seeing what would trouble my heart, I turned over, giving him my back. A moment later, the quilt over me sank slightly. Feng Zhao actually leaped over me and lay down on my other side. He was lying face to face with me again, me. Before I could ask what he wanted, the bird spoke first. Despite its fierce expression, its tone was full of grievance. "Why did you turn away and not look at me? You used to sleep pressed against me. Are you tired of me now?" Me, not an immortal lord. You need to understand that humans and birds are completely different species. I can pet a bird, but I can't pet you. Besides, doesn't everyone say you're the aloof type? How come you're so clingy? There were too many things I wanted to complain about, leaving me momentarily speechless, unsure where to even begin. Yet I heard the bird let out a cold laugh. "You've kissed, touched, seen, and slept with my entire body. If you dare abandon me, I'll make you regret it." Me, immortal venerable, please don't say such ambiguous things. Back then you were clearly just a bird, if we're calculating it this way. Obviously you're the one being unreasonable. Hey, I thought it would take me a long time to adjust to suddenly having another living person by my side, but to my own surprise, I actually grew accustomed very quickly to Feng Zhao constantly clinging to me. Even after he regained his status as an immortal lord, he would still accompany me to gather herbs in the back mountains at dawn, flying up trees when necessary to tirelessly pick spirit fruits for me. When I treated spiritual beasts, he would sit beside me, passing tools, keeping an eye on unruly creatures, calling me back for meals on time, and at night, lying beside me holding me as we slept. Back when he was still a bird, it was the same routine, whether as a human or a bird. Feng Zhao's temperament, personality, and habits remained unchanged. The only differences now are his larger size and chattier nature. To me, these minor distinctions are hardly worth mentioning. What gives me a headache is that Feng Zhao has been trying very, very hard to cheer me up, but he might as well not have bothered, because he always overdoes it and ends up messing up repeatedly. For example, after learning that I had a sweet tooth, Feng Zhao volunteered to make osmanthus cakes for me. Half an hour later, with a loud boom, thick black smoke began pouring out through the windows and door cracks, while a raging fire erupted on the roof, a truly terrifying scene. 3 seconds later, Feng Zhao emerged with a face covered in soot, coughing violently, and with an expression of both horror and grievance. He complained to me, "I just couldn't get the firewood in that stove to light, so I tried blowing on it with some oddly true fire. I really blew very gently. How did the stove just collapse?" Me. The first failure didn't dampen Feng Zhao's enthusiasm at all. After 3 days of despondency, he excitedly announced to me that he had made a set of shadow puppets and written a love story, wanting to find someone to perform it for me. Somehow, word got out. Everyone in the cultivation world had heard about this matter. When everyone heard the immortal Venerable had written a shadow play, they all rushed over to join in the excitement. So on the day the shadow play was performed, the area near the Jade Pool was packed with a bustling crowd. Everyone brought their small stools and lined up to sit down. There were so many people that Feng Zhao and I could only stand to the side. Feng Zhao seemed not to have expected such a large turnout, his expression turning somewhat gloomy, but when speaking to me, there was still an expectant smile in their voice.
"Shall I? No need." Feng Zhao grabbed my sleeve, looking up at me with pitiful eyes. "Just a kiss will do." Proud as an immortal lord, he actually resorted to playing pitiful one day. Seeing him like this, I found it somewhat amusing, so I simply bent down and boldly pressed my lips to his. After our lips lingered for a moment, I leisurely asked him when we parted, "Will you take your medicine properly now?" It was Feng Zhao who made the request himself, yet when I actually fulfilled it for him, he became shy again. Feng Zhao avoided eye contact, refusing to look at me. The tips of his ears were so red they looked about to drip blood. After what felt like ages, he finally answered me, though his voice was barely louder than a mosquito's hum. On the day of the Qixi festival, Feng Zhao invited me to go down the mountain and visit the mortal world's market together. The night was perfect. With warm lantern lights glowing, street performers were doing face-changing tricks, and vendors enthusiastically called out, inviting everyone to stop and watch. The air was filled with the delicious aromas of various foods, smelling absolutely wonderful. Because I had told him that I came from another world, Feng Zhao now asked me curiously, "What was your life like in that world?" I answered honestly, "It was quite dull. In that world, I was just an ordinary office worker. To treat small animals, I often had to work late into the night, rushing to the station to catch the last bus home. On the way, I'd order takeout, only to eat it alone at home when it was already half cold." I sighed, looking back on those experiences now. They felt so distant, as if they belonged to a past life. Feng Zhao asked, "What about during festivals? Isn't there anything that makes you happy?" I thought for a moment, then clapped my hands excitedly. "There is." Back then I lived near the sea. Every festival night, fireworks would light up the shoreline. I could stand on my balcony watching them soar into the sky, absolutely breathtaking. Feng Zhao questioned, "That's all it took?" "Exactly. Ordinary people's happiness is just that simple. It's just a shame people here don't seem to have the custom of setting off fireworks during the Qixi festival." Feng Zhao didn't respond, suddenly falling into silence. I've grown accustomed to this aloof demeanor of his. It appears profoundly mysterious, but in truth, he's just spacing out. I gently tapped his shoulder to bring him back to reality. "All right, that steamed bun stall up ahead has a crazy long line. Must be good. Come on, my treat for some mortal world delicacies." After tiring ourselves out exploring, Feng Zhao and I sat by the riverside enjoying the breeze. I swung my legs idly, watching others float river lanterns with bored eyes. When my gaze grew weary and I finally looked away, I noticed Feng Zhao had lowered his head to write something on a small slip of paper. His movements were extremely covert, his right hand concealed beneath wide sleeves. Had I not been sitting so close to him, I would never have noticed. I leaned over curiously. "What are you doing?" Feng Zhao seemed startled by me, giving a slight tremble that made the small note in his hand slip free. A gust of wind carried it toward the river. Yet, instead of sinking into the water, the paper stubbornly fluttered and swayed, drifting determinately toward the sky above the river's center, soon vanishing into the night. Just as I was marveling at why even this world's mortal realm would have something like anti-gravity, bang! fireworks suddenly burst open in the sky. So the drawing Feng Zhao had just made was actually a talisman. So he had remembered my earlier words and wanted me to see fireworks here, then. Clusters of fireworks in various colors and shapes burst open in the sky. Little rabbits, dogs, birds, cats, all were styles I had never seen before. My eyes widened with excitement, and amid the booming of the fireworks, I leaned close to Feng Zhao's ear and shouted, "Thank you, they're beautiful." Feng Zhao turned his head to look at me, then smiled as if a great weight had been lifted. "Here there is no sea, only a river. But it's all right, at least this time nothing went wrong." I patted his shoulder generously. "Don't be nervous, even if it didn't work out. I wouldn't laugh at you. After all, I'm used to all kinds of unexpected situations." I muttered to myself in my heart, "This time is different." Feng Zhao suddenly interrupted. Seeing my dazed confusion, he fell silent again, then stammered out my name. "Jiang Wanin, look up at me." I chuckled in confusion. "But I am looking at you." Truth be told, I'd never seen Feng Zhao this nervous before. Not even when the second demon prince marched upon our borders with tens of thousands of demon soldiers did he appear this flustered, his gaze unsteady, his breathing rapid. His hands kept twisting the white gauze at his sleeves, nearly wringing them into pickled vegetable strips. After a moment, he finally seemed to make up his mind and spoke solemnly. "I have something to say to you. During the time we've spent together, I've realized you're an exceptionally good person. You're very compassionate towards small animals and loyal to your friends. Your medical skills are superb. You can treat various illnesses in small animals and even help black cats get neutered." His gaze wandered as he stammered through his words, baffled at first. I gradually began to understand. This seems like a confession. After all, Feng Zhao's blushing face and sparkling eyes were far too obvious. "Stop talking." I extended my Kong-style hand, looking at Feng Zhao with an expression that said, "I get it." Feng Zhao abruptly fell silent. His eyes brimmed with nervous anticipation. You understand." "Of course I understand. Mentioning black cats and then bringing up your own situation. That's way too obvious." I nodded, struggling to hold back my laughter as I deliberately twisted his meaning and asked, "You want me to help you get neutered, don't you?" Feng Zhao's smile froze on his face. Pretending not to notice, I deliberately let my gaze drift downward, down to a certain unmentionable area of Feng Zhao's anatomy. He said earnestly and distressedly, "But I've never performed this surgery on a bird before." Hearing these words, Feng Zhao suddenly snapped back to attention. He glared at me through gritted teeth. This sovereign wasn't talking about that matter, this time. It was my turn to be puzzled. "I just wanted to ask you, would you like a cultivation partner?" Feng Zhao's long, delicate eyelashes trembled slightly. His voice carried a slight tremble, yet his tone was extraordinarily solemn. He said, "I wish to be your Dao companion." Though I had anticipated this, when I actually heard those words, my mind still inevitably short-circuited for an instant. Feng Zhao said these words to me with that exquisitely flawless face of his, so perfect it seemed like a 3D model, making the moment utterly thrilling. In the distance, fireworks continued to rise into the sky, bursting into magnificent brilliance that made the river shimmer with dazzling beauty. Yet Feng Zhao began earnestly listing the benefits of becoming his Taoist partner. "Our Phoenix clan is the most loyal. You will be my only wife. You can share my lifespan, living as long as heaven and earth. Most importantly, every time we dual cultivate, your immortal powers will grow stronger." I finally snapped out of my daze. With a mix of amusement and exasperation, I sighed. "Now that you put it that way, it doesn't sound like a confession. More like you're applying for the position of my husband." Feng Zhao's ears turned red. He stammered, I've never liked anyone else. I don't know how to say it, or what to say." His voice grew softer. "I don't mean anything else by saying this. I just wanted to tempt you a little." I froze for a moment, then couldn't help but laugh. Who would have thought the Phoenix Immortal Venerable, the most powerful cultivator in our immortal realm, could be so innocent? Yet then I heard Feng Zhao say with complete sincerity, "Awan, to be honest, I've always believed that forming an immortal bond with another is not a good thing. To love someone, for those who cultivate immortality, is no different than sitting on the blade of a knife, or drinking slow-acting poison. Immortal partners must share life and death, yet in the endless stretch of eternity, emotions are the most prone to change. Whether you come to love or loathe your partner in the future, it will only hinder your cultivation progress and disrupt your Tao heart. In short, It brings 100 harms without a single benefit. Feng Zhao suddenly lowered his gaze to meet mine. He curved his lips into a faint smile, carrying a kind of willing finality. But it wasn't until I met you that I realized it wasn't like that at all. Loving someone deeply means losing control of your own heart. You think of her day and night, craving to be with her every moment. Every ordinary little thing you do together becomes extraordinarily delightful. And you'd throw caution to the wind just to protect her, facing the unknown future by her side. So, Jiang Wanyin, Feng Zhao gazed at me and asked with utmost sincerity, would you be my cultivation partner? Fireworks burst in clusters overhead, magnificent and dazzling, illuminating our locked gazes beneath the night sky. I smiled softly and nodded as naturally as breathing. Just like that night when I bent down to pick up his mud-covered self without hesitation, I said, I do. Extra story. In the world of immortal cultivation, few cultivators choose to marry. It's often only once in centuries that one encounters the joyous occasion of cultivators tying the knot. Not to mention the groom this time was that phoenix immortal who had been single for thousands of years. So when news of the immortal's impending marriage spread, the entire cultivation world was astonished, and everyone seemed far more excited than the groom himself, who stood composed and dignified on the jade terrace. Abbess Zihong helped calculate the auspicious wedding dates. There were two options: the 3rd day of the 3rd month 7 days later, or the 7th day of the 6th month 3 years later. The immortal venerable remained composed, though his words came slightly faster than usual. Let's make it 7 days from now. Abbess Zihong gave the immortal venerable a teasing glance, smiling without speaking, though she said nothing. Feng Zhao had already understood the change in the abbess's gaze and pursed her lips in slight embarrassment. 3 years is too long. I can't wait that long, the abbess laughed. Immortal master, who once measured his seclusion in centuries, now finds even 3 years too long. What a curious thing indeed. Feng Zhao grew increasingly embarrassed and was about to offer some explanation when the abbess raised her hand to signal there was no need. Though I now stand beyond the threshold of worldly affairs, I still believe finding someone who truly loves you and spending a lifetime together is a rare blessing. Lowering her gaze with gentle affection, the abbess added, this humble nun offers her congratulations in advance on your joyous union with Miss Wanyin. May your hearts be forever united in harmony. 7 days later, at an auspicious hour, the groom's wedding procession was extraordinarily grand. Its lengthy train stretching a winding red ribbon along the mountain path. The vanguard of the ceremonial procession had already reached the mountainside. They would arrive at any moment. Hurry up. Go check on Dr. Jiang and ask if she's ready yet. The earrings aren't on yet. Go ask if the painter has arrived. We'll be taking the group portrait soon. Zhou stood beneath the corridor, directing everything with calm efficiency. The atmosphere was extraordinarily lively. Although the bride had no family or relatives to rely on, many cultivators dressed in festive attire stepped in to act as her bridal party. Thanks to the diligent efforts and miraculous healing skills of Dr. Jiang Wanyin, this vast bride's family contingent included not only cultivators but also many spiritual pets and animals. The crooked-necked turtle had long since recovered and was now sprawled on the edge of the flower bed, craning its neck with all its might to watch the commotion. Its basin-sized emerald shell was tied with a large, gorgeous red flower, looking extremely festive from afar. The beagle miraculously didn't cause trouble, because it found something more interesting to do. It lay beside the wedding band, raising its loud donkey-like voice to compete with the Swana horn, infuriating the musician until his face turned red with anger. The guinea pig wore a red frilly dress, riding proudly atop a tall alpaca's head while patrolling the area. And that famous eunuch black cat had now seen through the vanity of life, showing interest in nothing but eating and sleeping. Even when the crowd's cheers nearly lifted the roof, it would merely lazily open one eye and let out a contemptuous yawn. Then it would curl itself back into a massive ball and continue sleeping. He's here. The groom has arrived. Amidst the joyous clamor of gongs and drums, the immortal lord dismounted his horse and cupped his hands in greeting to the crowd. That usually frosty face now seemed to have its chill melted by warm sunlight. Smiling with softened eyes and brows, blocking the door, demanding red envelopes, asking questions. After passing through one obstacle after another, the immortal venerable finally got his wish to see his bride. His bride sat somewhat stiffly on the bed, dressed in a red skirt embroidered with gold-threaded flowers. Seeing him enter, she curved her lips into a light, gentle smile. The smile was dazzling in the sunlight, deadly gorgeous. Feng Zhao stood there dumbfounded. It was Jiang Wanyin who finally laughed and called out to him. "Hey, what are you doing? Aren't you coming over? You look so beautiful today." Feng Zhao spoke clumsily, then gently loosened his embrace upon hearing the laughter of his beloved beside him. Gazing into Jiang Wanyin's eyes, he spoke earnestly, word by word. "How wonderful. From now on, we can be together for a long, long time, never to part again." Jiang Wanyin and Feng Zhao exchanged glances for a moment, then also began to laugh. She tilted her head up and gently kissed the corner of his lips. "So you're my husband now." At this moment, a breeze drifted through the half-open window, making the red gauze sway gently as a tree of peach blossoms bloomed in full splendor. The crowd laughed and frolicked, birds and beasts leaped with joy, and cheerful banter filled the air. It was indeed a time of tranquil years, when fate smiled upon love. The end.